March 9th. I'm going to call this March 9th, 2021 Commissioners' regular meeting to order. As we peruse our agenda, are there any adjustments? And I would move that we add an adjustment to airport letter E, a transfer request.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself. I'd like to move that we add an item to Commissioners letter C, and that's a discussion on some new information that Commissioner Parity got with regards to COVID grant. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself. My last one, Scott Adkins. Should we have an executive session at the end to discuss our computer security?
Yeah, I think that would fall under executive. I would rather do that than discuss it in public, the specific of any plan, if you want to discuss the report or anything like that.
I agree with the executive session. I just wondered if it warranted a discussion, but if so, I'm going to move that we have it at the end of our meeting today, which would be Commissioners 11D. We have an executive session to discuss our computer security.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Hearing, pardon?
No.
No. Hearing none. Motion is in order to approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Yes.
Seconded.
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself. The agenda has been established. We will now go to public comment. Is there anybody this morning that would like to make a public comment? Hearing none, we will now go to item 2, approval of the minutes of the February 16th meeting.
Move to approve the minutes of the February 2nd special meeting as presented.
February 16th, I believe.
February 16th.
16th, I'm sorry.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself. Item 3. I've asked to have this put on the agenda this morning for a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to publicly reaffirm with our staff these recommendations that have been made and published by Scott Adkins with regards to how we're going to deal with the COVID crisis on the campus and with our employees. I also want to reinforce with our department managers the importance of each of you enforcing those directives with your employees, especially with regards to monitoring their apparent health when they show up to work and taking the necessary action to send them home if they don't appear well. I'm concerned that some employees, through dedication, it's not through spite, but I think through dedication, are coming to work because they feel that they've got so much work to do, they can't take time off. They're coming to work sick. They're not willing to go home and weather it out. And these are the people that I need for your department managers to take the necessary action. And quite honestly, as far as I'm concerned, if there is a problem with an employee who refuses to go home, I'm asking my counterparts this morning to agree with me that our administrative staff, Scott and Rebecca, will take the necessary actions to remove them. I think it's that important that we protect the fellow employees here and that we follow these recommendations. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I'm
feel like-
not sure what kind of issue there'd be if you tried to remove somebody from the from the premises. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, maybe others have a better opinion on what kind of issues might come up if we're like forcibly removing somebody from the building, if that's what you're implying. But
Yep,
I
that is what
definitely think the supervisors should be using it as a opportunity to make sure that we're documenting all of the employees, to make sure we're noting behaviors that would be adverse, so that when it comes time for a review, all that's noted and we're making documentation on our end. If something happens and we need to terminate somebody, we've got it backed up with written documentation on it, and I can see that easily being not working within the guidelines of our COVID protection plan.
Well, I relate this to issues that I'm more familiar with and direct my comments to Scott Kane. But if the sheriff had a patrolman come to work intoxicated, he wouldn't put him on a cot in the back room and let him sleep it off. He would remove him. And you can't have, a drunk deputy in the building accessing the computer, possibly driving. I mean, he just can't be employed, and the hazard, the liability to the county is tremendous by allowing him to do that. And I think the same situation is here when you have an employee comes to work visibly ill, who has symptoms consistent with perhaps the COVID, and the employee says, "I'm too busy to leave. I need to stay and work." And I just have trouble believing that we're unable to physically remove this individual from the building and forbid them from coming in here until they're well. If we have to have a legal opinion on this, I guess we should get it, because I'm that adamant that department heads need to take this necessary step to keep sick people out of the building.
My feeling is that we have a policy that's in place. It's adequate. I think just, reiterating that this is serious, we take it serious. I just can't imagine a scenario where we'd actually have to physically remove somebody. So unless there's something I don't know, but I think the policy is there. If it came down to that, well, then I guess probably the department head would have to call the sheriff's office or Ellsworth Police or somebody, but I just can't imagine it going there. And I don't feel that we need, to get any advice further than what we have now until, I don't know, I just don't see that ever getting that serious where somebody won't leave and we have to physically remove them. I think what we have is adequate.
Paul, to what extent do we expect our administrative staff, Scott and Rebecca, to enforce these directives?
Well, I think they're big boys and girls, for lack of a better term, and they, if somebody is ill, I would, as their supervisor, I would imagine that they would say, you need to go home. You're sick. We're worried about this. And if it escalated, I don't see Scott or Rebecca tackling them and removing them. I see them, calling for help if it came down to that. But I just can't imagine that, that it would escalate to anything like that.
Well, I'm not really talking about physically removing somebody so much as I'm talking about reinforcing with Rebecca and Scott that if they see an employee who appears to have symptoms that hasn't been asked by their department manager to go home, they have the responsibility to intervene and push that issue with the department manager. Scott Adkins?
Yeah, so just, here's my scenario, and I would, in the case that you just described, somebody that I notice is not feeling well and still is in the building, I would address that directly with the department head and take it from there. The scenario of having to have somebody, I'm going to use the term escorted out of the building. I would hope we would never have to physically, and I know that's not what you meant, Commissioner. My scenario, under the working cooperatively with the department head, Rebecca or myself or both would go down and intervene and ask the employee, remind them again of the policy and ask them to leave. If they refuse to leave, my next step would be, and I would indicate this to the employees, that I'm going to ask all other employees to leave the office, especially under COVID scenario. And then I am going to, and the sheriff can correct me if this is not, if I need to go to Ellsworth, but I'm assuming the sheriff's office would be welcome to assist in asking the employee or removing the employee under the best conditions as possible. And then from there, reminding the employee as this develops that this could be, and leading up to termination. I mean, this could be a lot of things, but for the security and the safety of employees currently and that employee, how do we best solve this by peaceably getting the individual to leave the campus? And I would think going through all those steps and eventually they would realize it and leave the campus.
And my feeling is that everything you discussed, you are able to do under, as being the administrator and the policy.
Yeah, as long as we have the support of the three of you, then yes. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really where we want to go today, is that we want to reinforce with Scott and Rebecca that we expect, and you have the authority to intervene in department employees who appear to be ill. Let's hope that settles it. I really think that if you go into a department head and say, that employee looks sick, is, yeah, I thought so too. Let's ask them to go home. That's the end of it. They're gone and whatnot.
Yeah.
So let's hear from department head. Sheriff.
Good morning. We've been asked times in the past when someone was in the building that was potentially a threat or disruptive, and we've escorted them out of the building. And I think by the commissioner's policy of how we're handling COVID, it would be almost under that same category, that they're a threat health-wise to the rest of us that are working here, and it would be within our purview to ask somebody to leave and escort them out. Now, I don't think we need to be getting into any situation where we arrest someone. We've had complaints here at the office about parties and about stores that weren't wearing masks. We've gone down, and I'll cite a situation that I was made aware of and I dealt with myself, of a store that someone made a complaint saying that the employees were not wearing masks and that people were allowed into the building without wearing masks. I went down twice, 2 days, 2 consecutive days, sat in the parking lot and watched the coming and going, and there were no violations. And I went in and notified the manager. I said, I've been sitting in your parking lot for 2 days because of this, and they were pleased that we did this. I'd like to think that the people here are professional enough that if we asked them to leave because we were concerned for the health and well-being both of the rest of the staff here, but the staff that they would be working in whatever department or whatever office they're working in. I know down here, if one of the deputies or someone that's here, I gave them a direct order that you need to go home, you need to exit the building, you need to go home, and they didn't, I would look at that as a violation of a direct order, and that discipline probably would come into play. So that, I guess that's my 50 cents worth on what I think we should do.
Tim Richardson,
Thank you, Sheriff.
Tim, if you,
Yeah, the only thing that I have I agree with everything everybody's saying. But at times I have individuals with no sick time on the books. We're just gonna direct them this is gonna be without pay or what? Just like to deal with this before. I know that question's gonna come up at some point. I haven't had this issue, but if it does and we have no one with sick time on the books, how do you want me to handle that?
well, I'd have to look to Rebecca, but if they've had no COVID, if they've had no COVID lost time, even if they don't have time on the books, we cover that, the first 80 hours, Rebecca?
Yeah, that's what we have been doing. And all of that goes away on March 31st. Because that was the extension of that FFCRA, the leave provisions under that. So I guess we would have to, so if they didn't have the 80 hours, I guess we would have to look at what our options are. The county, I mean, the county is very generous with benefit time and with sick time. We can look at things like, borrowing into the future. If they, they can sort of borrow against sick time that they would earn, in the future. That's one option. I'm not sure what else I'm not sure it would be wise to create a policy. Well, I'm not sure it would be wise to.
I agree. I just wanted that to know that we might run into that. And we always have worked things out as we went, but I just wanted to know that could be a factor up here and would follow the policy as directed to remove the individual. So, but thank you.
That wasn't really the intent, the removal part of this. This is really an awareness, reinforcement. Come on, we got to be sure. Let's not get slack with our directive. We've got to stay diligent, and that's really what I'd like the focus of this meeting, of this discussion to be. And so, and I think by virtue of simply having this, that we've accomplished that. So let's just say, just reinforce with the department heads, see them stay diligent with your enforcement of this with your employees, and we'll get through this towards the end. Anything further, gentlemen?
No, I think it's time to move on.
Then let's move on now to the sheriff's item 4.
Again, good morning. A, request approval to advertise for a full-time deputy. Detective Steve McFarland is going to retire in May of this year. I told him I wasn't going to accept his retirement, but I guess he's still going to do that. So I'd like permission to advertise for a deputy because we'll backfill Detective McFarland's position with someone in-house.
I'm gonna move to approve advertising for a full-time deputy as requested.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to advertise for full-time deputy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I am myself.
Thank you. B, accreditation project for the sheriff's office. I believe the commissioners were sent a 2-page document outlining or describing the project that I would like to undertake here at the sheriff's office. One of the things that I have heard is people want more transparency. And the Maine chiefs created a program several years ago. It's called MLEAP. It's Maine Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. And this is a very intensive program. It's a lot of work. And it sets the standard for law enforcement in the state of Maine. It's the state-of-the-art standards. You, as an agency, have a tremendous amount of work, or us as an agency will have a tremendous amount of work to make this thing happen. There are a few accredited here in the state of Maine. I have spoken with Sheriff Lancaster in Somerset County. He is beginning this process there, and Chief Deputy Kane and I are going to get down and visit with the sheriff and Chief Deputy Mitchell. I believe it's on the 25th of this month to see how they're going. I've spoken with Chief Willis in Bar Harbor, and when he was president of the Maine Chiefs, he was one of the leaders in establishing this program, along with the former chief, I believe it was in Auburn. What happens is that we go through all of our policies. All of our policies are evaluated. And if there are some policies that are identified that we should have, that we do not have, we add those and we have to meet the standards. So this is a 100% deal. I mean, it's not pass fail. It's not 80% you meet the standards. You have to meet each and every standard. They go from training, they go from how you handle your health programs. They look at how we handle evidence. They look at our cruisers, our equipment, everything. And every individual that works here in the sheriff's office has to meet those standards. They have to have all of the training that is required in this program. And I think this will be a big feather in our cap that will show that we are dedicated to being transparent, that we are dedicated to being as professional as we possibly can. And this certification is something that we're going to undertake. Now, with that being said, we're going to have to spend a little money, and we're going to have to buy some software programs, and we're going to have some people help us go through our policies and see where we are. And actually, I've spoken with former Chief Deputy Dick Bishop, and for those of you that know Dick, he is very meticulous when it comes to looking at policies and so forth and so on. So he's going to help us with that portion of it. And we'll also work with Dirigo, which is an agency in the state that is overseeing this project currently. So I just wanted to make the commissioners aware that we are going to undertake this project, and we will complete this. It traditionally takes in the vicinity of a year to go through everything to get the accreditation. And it, once you have applied, you have that 1 year, the clock is ticking, and you need to complete everything in the program to get your accreditation. If you don't complete it with a year, you go back to square one, you don't pass go, you don't collect $200, you have to start all over again. So it's imperative that we have someone like Dick Bishop who can dedicate time to this, because I certainly don't have staff enough now, as busy as we are, to take someone, one of my lieutenants or a detective and assign, or chief deputy, and assign them this project. You know, each of us are going to have to do some things. I'm going to have to do more here. Chief, the lieutenants are going to have to help organize some of these things. But I think with this, we will meet some of the highest professional standards in the country. So this is what we intend to do. And I fully well expect that we'll accomplish this.
Sheriff, how does it help with the transparency aspect to it? So like how does the public have access to the information to keep it transparent?
All of these policies will be something, unless there's something in them, you know, as far as operational, that, you know, if someone says, what is your use of force policy? We can show them what our use of force policy, how it is, and how we meet those standards. And that it'll have anything. If, for example, if there is an incident where someone makes a complaint about the use of force policy, a violation of that, we can show them that A, we acknowledge that there was a complaint. B, we investigated it. This is the results of the investigation. So, and with this software program and with these standards in place, we'll be able to do that.
I'm familiar with accreditation just from my experience in Bar Harbor and Chief Willis, and kudos for you for bringing this forward. I think it's a great move, and I would, you know, I don't see that you need any action other than moral support from us, and I wholeheartedly would lend that. I think that's a good move, a good process, and it's, you know, one more. It really professionalizes an organization. I think it's a great move.
Scott, when are you going to start that?
Well, I've done some initial, I visited with Chief Willis. I had a phone conversation with Sheriff Lancaster a couple of days ago, and we're going to get it out and see how far along they are in the process of that. So what we would do before they come to start evaluating us, we have the ability to put together our policies, have somebody look at them saying, okay, you've got this, 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 and this, so that when they come, hopefully we'll have everything in place and be ready. So we wouldn't start, I don't suspect, much before first part of April, maybe the middle part of April, depending on when we can pull all the information together.
Okay, so perhaps you could let us know when you did start and then give us an occasional update so that we could see how you're progressing through the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can do that.
I mirror Paul's remarks and congratulate you on this endeavor. Do you have any idea what it's going to cost, Scott?
Well, the software program, we have a Zoom meeting, I believe it's this week, to look at the software program. And why you need that software program is it organizes everything, and the evaluators can log into and look at what we've done with our policies and our procedures and those types of things ahead of time, so that they can look at them. So again, when they come to do the evaluation.
So what's the cost of that
program?
What's the
I'm
cost?
sorry.
What's the cost of that?
Sheriff Lancaster said that it was $5,000 a year for 4 years, but if you paid $8,000 up front, you would get to 4 years for basically, you'd save $2,000. So those are some of the figures that we have to have. And then obviously, if Dick Bishop is going to help us, we're going to need to reimburse him.
Where are you gonna find the money for this? Where is it gonna come from?
Well, I'm looking to see what I have in my budget, what I have in reserve accounts, and I would use some of that money to pay Dick Bishop out of our part-time money that we have in our budget.
Okay, so when you come back and let us know, give us an update on your finances too, where you suspect you're gonna be paying for it. Okay,
I'll be able to do that, Commissioner, after I have a meeting with them down in Somerset County, so I'll be able to nail down exactly what I'm gonna need for dollars and cents.
all right, very good. Thank you very much.
Sheriff.
Scott. Okay, let's move on to item C. Good morning, Sunny Sprague.
Morning.
Scott, I've asked you to do a little research and refresh our memory on the situation, the assistance we're giving Swans Island with their law enforcement, and a presentation for Paul so that he can understand what this is all about, okay?
Last year, I believe, was the first year that it was brought to our attention that a bill was passed in the legislature several years ago, allowing counties, if they so desired, to give financial assistance to islands who require or request law enforcement. I believe Knox County was who we spoke to about that because of the islands that they have deputies assigned to. And I think maybe it was Sunny that brought it to our attention. And we made a presentation to the commissioners. The commissioners agreed to give Swans Island, because they have a full-time deputy out there, a $5,000 assistance. The request came from Swans Island for this year for $15,000 law enforcement assistance. That obviously is something that the commissioners are going to have to decide on. Yes, they want to do that, or it's too much, or not enough, or whatever. You're going to have to do that. You know, we have a good working relationship with Sunny, and good morning, Sunny. We've done that. We've had that for a long, long time, and we'd like to keep that deputy on the island. It saves a lot of headaches if their complaint comes in. We don't have to track down a boat and send somebody out there. You know, I think we probably would spend more than $15,000 to send somebody out there for when they were needed for law enforcement issues. So I think something that we really need to look at. But on the other hand, we need to look at where we're going forward another year, because we have to look at our contract, our union contract, and that pay scale. There's going to be another jump, a fairly substantial jump in the hourly rate next year because of that contract. So
Okay, so we'll have a discussion on where the money's going to come from, but I want to make it perfectly clear that Swans Island is asking for a $10,000 increase to the 15, so for a total of 15. So this is not a $15,000 increase. It's a total of $15,000. And so before we talk about,
I'm just going to say, Chief Kane and I had a brief conversation about this, and he had an idea because of how the pay scale is going to go. Maybe it's one of those projects that the commissioners say, okay, we're going to charge Swans Island X amount of dollars a year, and then whatever it is above and beyond that, that the county will assist Swans Island with that. So that's just another idea. We really didn't get a chance to talk about it very much, but I'm just tossing that out there for.
Okay, well, I think that we need to settle this first issue first. Gentlemen, presently, we're giving Swans Island a $5,000 a year assistance to their law enforcement. And there's been a request to increase that to 15,000. What is your pleasure with regards to this?
I'm
Well,
not going to vote for anything until I understand what we're doing better, to be honest.
What is it you don't understand? In other words, what happens is, and
Oh.
yeah, what is it, John?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Basically, we're charging Swans Island for a law enforcement contract. But the statute permits, they're already paying, of course, a certain amount of county tax that everybody pays, and everybody expects to get some kind of law enforcement service for that. And so it's almost like if we don't give them something back, we're charging them twice for the same service. And so we're trying to find a fee that would mirror what it would cost to provide service to Swans Island if we didn't have the contract and we had to go out. And that's a difficult number, but it doesn't take long to mount up when you look at the ferry fees and the overtime fees and the loss of that deputy when he's, for the time it takes him to go out and back and so on. So Scott Adkins, did you get a chance? What, Scott Kane?
I was just gonna give you some food for thought. The 2020 budget for Swans Island was 95,800. And for 2021, it's 107,623. So you see with that union contract, there was a big jump. So that may be as large a jump of that another year. So that's just something to consider.
Okay. Scott Adkins, did you get a chance to talk to your counterpart in Knox County to see how much they were paying towards Vinyl Haven and North Haven and Walton? No.
No, not yet. I can check with them. Yeah, I'll send an email right now.
Sonny, you seem to have a sense of what they were paying, didn't you, Sonny?
Talking with the town manager, this past year is $50,000.
50,000 down there. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
May I add a little bit to the conversation if I can?
absolutely.
We really appreciate the sheriff's department. That's the first thing, but it is getting high, and we went last year from 95,000. This year it's up to 107,000 on the contract, and evidently there's going to be another jump here next year. But looking at, and so if we went with last year with balances and what we raised and transferred from shellfish conservation and excise tax and all that, last year was 105,000. Well, we'll leave those other things the same, but this year we're going to have to raise the county alone's 107,903. When it all ends up, I think last year the expense was 105, 137.97. This year we're going to know we're going to be $12,000 more on that, and we're up to 117,000, and we provide housing. We're paying we're paying better than we're paying $11,640 annual payment on an addition we made to an apartment up over the town structure here. We provide the cruiser, which is 3 years old. We try to maintain that in good condition, all that, and we do. When it all comes out, if we took the 117 or whatever, and we added on to it the housing and whatnot, our budget's about $135,000 to $140,000 a year for law enforcement. And what we get out of it is we were hoping that he and family, we tried for years to get a family, and Scott found a family that would come, but they don't stay here a whole lot, but they are here off and on. And Rob is here when he's during his working time. But anyway, it's to some 140,000 isn't much, but 140,000 is Swans Island is quite a bit. And if we ever did lose it, if the taxpayers rebelled or whatever, and we did lose it, I do think it would cost probably much more than 15,000 for the county to have law enforcement on Swans Island. It's be a heck of an inconvenience and whatnot, but anyway, I went to Sheriff Clark first, and then I went to Paul, two of the county commissioners, the ones that I know, and sort of explained it the best I could, and Bill said he would bring it in and bring it up, and that's where we are today. But I'd like to read you one thing. There was a bill that was passed by Hannah Pingree. We never knew about it, but it said Vinyl Haven, North Haven, and Islesboro on the bill for offshore islands. So then I went, after 2 or 3 years finding about it, I came to the county commissioners 2 or 3 years ago, and it was brought up, and they did give $5,000, which we're very appreciative of it. But this year everything is getting so much higher. But I'll read under section 2, title 30, MRS, subsection 107, subsection 6, to be enacted to read. Offshore island tax assessment credit. For the purpose of allowing an offshore island municipality not connected to the mainland by a bridge to contract independently with the county for rural patrol services, the county may credit the qualifying municipality for a portion of the county assessment that would otherwise have been used to provide rural patrol services to the municipality if it were on the mainland. For any such agreement that is entered into, the assessment credit must be annually negotiated by qualifying municipality and the county commissioners. It's an emergency clause, and whenever, if it's passed, this would go into effect. And summary says, this amendment replaces the bill. It allows offshore island municipalities to enter into contracts with the county, which we have, to provide rural patrol services by crediting to a municipality the portion of the county assessment that would be used for rural patrol of the municipality if it were on the mainland. The assessment credit must be negotiated annually between the island municipalities and the county. The amendment also adds an emergency preamble, emergency clause, because the county budgets are currently being developed. And looking at that, quite an increase in the contract we were signing this year. I felt that I probably should come in and ask for some more. I certainly not asking for $50,000. I thought 10 would be wise and fair, probably, and hopefully it might happen. Anyway, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So,
John, Millard.
Yes, I'd like to speak on this a little bit from my involvement with Tremont. When I first became town manager in Tremont, we were contracting with the state police. And then there was a change in commanders, and the new commander didn't want to be involved with, didn't want to be considered a hired gun. So the state police no longer contracted with communities. At that time, we shifted over to Hancock County. And I believe Tremont still contracts with Hancock County for law enforcement. This is a very good program. Swans Island is in a more unique position, being an island. But what I would suggest is, instead of taking money from county taxation to support Swans Island, that if you give them more money, you take it from community benefits, CBA money. Then it doesn't affect other communities' tax dollars.
Okay. Paul?
am I up?
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Okay. I spoke with Mr. Sprague and he explained everything to me. It makes a lot of sense. Costs have escalated for a whole host of reasons, and they need some help. So I support the help. I don't think I have everything I need to say where the help is coming from. Millard has definitely outlined something that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure that's a long-term solution. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't have the experience to judge that, but I'd like to, to me, a next step would be, okay, the county commission is in support of this. Now we got to figure out where it's coming from. To me, that's where I am. And I don't want to put words in Swanbacker's mouth, but I think that's what he was alluding to when, he didn't, he didn't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna increase $10,000 and not have a real discussion.
Yeah.
That's my point. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing I'm saying, because
Yeah.
obviously you two had more knowledge of the issue than me, so that's
Well,
why
I think I have, some knowledge only because Mr. Sprague explained it to me, and it all makes sense. But I don't know where the money needs to come from. I support the help. But to me, the next step is, for our administrator to say, okay, folks, if you support this, this is what we need to do it.
Well, I
So-
think,
Go ahead.
go ahead, John.
the only thing I was gonna say is, so you're right. I mean, I can see supporting it. That's not that I'm like against the idea or anything.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of wondering too, are we going to see any other islands requesting similar help? Is there any other potential?
No, we have no contracts with any other islands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no, this is our sole.
This is our only one, right?
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
So two things, this is a two-step process. If we agree that we want to increase that to 15,000, that's a standalone vote for, I believe. Then we can talk about how we're going to finance it this year, next year, and so on. So are we ready to make a motion on approving? Sonny, you had an official title for this thing. What is it? What do they call this? I've been calling it some kind of assistance, but it isn't. What's the LD call this?
Well, it's called the Offshore Island Tax Assessment Credit.
Offshore Island Tax
Tax Assessment Credit.
Assessment Credit. All right, gentlemen.
How about this? Maybe I can throw out this motion and then, to help frame where we're going. I was gonna move to support the request for an additional $10,000 for Swans Island law assistance to be possibly funded from community benefits funds, and request that the administrator bring a proposal to our next meeting. I mean, I just don't feel like I have all the tools to say, here's $10,000 and here's where it's coming from. If somebody else does, great, but I don't.
Well, can we just do a motion where we approve the increase to the total of $15,000? And
Listen, I'd like to make this motion and see, you're right, John. I'd like to keep this clean and whatnot. So I would like to move that we increase the offshore island assessment credit to the town of Swans Island to a total of $15,000 for the 2021 budget year.
can second that.
Okay, so the motion's been, and the reason I phrase it that way, according to the statute, we're going to have to do this every year. We'll have to set this rate every year. So we have to identify which budget year we're talking about.
Okay, but does that motion preclude Millard's suggestion?
No, we're going to have another discussion on funding after we approve the increase in the assessment credit. Okay?
That makes sense to me.
Okay, so let's see if we can get through this motion that's on the floor. All those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself. Now, with regards to funding, first of all, we really need to clean up how we're paying for this. Right now, in a discussion I had with the sheriff's office this morning, Pat, you're on here with us, but Pat makes an adjustment to the hourly rate, lowers that to the point of where he can factor in $5,000 savings to the town of Swans Island. So his rate to them is actually less than what it actually costs them. Now, there was some there was some discussion this morning, and I don't quite understand it, but there was somehow at the end of the year, there was some way to offset that through transfers or something. But anyways, this present situation is really difficult, I think, and I think we need to clean that up. And I'm going to suggest a couple things. First of all, no assistance for 2021 has been given to Swans Island yet. So Pat hasn't done anything with adjusting the hourly rates to try to compensate them, waiting for the day to see what we're going to do. And so I would like to suggest that for the 2021 year, that we pay the full $15,000 directly to Swans Island out of the community benefits account, and that Pat then assess the full hourly rate that he needs to balance his outside contract budget. Then next year, and Scott Adkins, I'm looking at you when I say this, next year, when the sheriff creates his outside contract account, his accounts, that if he needed a total of $300,000 for all his contracts, and we have required him in the past to have that zeroed out, in other words, his expenses must equal his revenues, that next year for 2022, whatever that assessment is, he decreases his revenue by that amount. So for example, if it was $15,000, he would show a $300,000 expense, and he would show a $285,000 revenue, and the balance then would be covered by taxation. Now, Millard, contrary to your thoughts, here's the deal. If, we'll say that if we didn't give anything to Swans Island, and Swans Island said, if you're not going to give us any assistance, we're not going to contract, and they stopped the contract, and we had to start providing that service, and the sheriff said, I need an additional $15,000 to cover the cost of going to Swans Island for 12 months, that would come out of taxation. So I believe, and just as Paul said earlier, he didn't know how sustainable it would be. I don't like to see anything coming out of CBA funds that perpetuates every year. I don't mind startup money out of CBA, but I don't want to, I've resisted using any of that to balance our budget because someday that's not going to be there. And so I don't mind using CBA funds for a one-time purpose, for an emergency, for unbudgeted items, but I don't like to see that earmarked over and over and over again for the same purpose year after year after year. So I would like to suggest that for 2021, that we send a check to Swans Island out of the CBA funds for $15,000 to cover this year's assessment credit. And then we have a discussion this fall on how we're going to fund that assessment through the county tax or through the budget process, something a lot cleaner than what the sheriff's office is trying to do now with adjusting the hourly rates and so on. And Rebecca, I need to remind you now that we need an agenda item sometime this fall with Swans Island to set the 2022 the assessment credit, because the statute requires us to set that annually. So remember, sometime around September, October, whatever that is, before we complete our budget, that we know what that figure is. Gentlemen, that's my comments. What's yours?
I totally agree that in the end, I think it needs to come out of the taxpayers. But I'm good with it coming out of the CBA this year. And yeah, so I totally agree with you.
Paul?
I agree.
Okay, anything, Scott Adkins? We haven't had a chance to talk about this. You all set? You understand what I'm suggesting, at least as far as the CBA this year? And we can just simply cut a check today for 15 grand, send it to Swans Island. Scott Kane, you can just do business as usual. You're not concerned with having to adjust your record, your billing to cover that assessment credit, okay? So is everybody clear on what we're doing? Okay,
I'm clear, but Scott Atkins, does that make sense?
I think for now it does. Really, the only question I have, I almost hate to bring, Sonny, I remember back with the original 5,000, that there was an issue with sending the town a check. So while we have you here, is the commissioners, okay, so sending you a 15,000, sending the town of Swans Island a $15,000 check is gonna be okay.
will you accept the $15,000 check, Sonny?
Yes, I guess, of course, but Scott mentioned before there was a problem and I can't remember.
I don't remember specifically what it was, but if there's no problem now, we're good. Yeah,
There's no problem.
okay.
Well, and this isn't just a check, this is a check for a specific purpose coming out of.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so,
Go into law enforcement account.
Right. This check represents our assessment credit for Swans Island for 2021. That's the motion on the floor, is to send them a $15,000 check for the 2021 assessment credit for Swans Island
Coming out of our CBA.
out of the CBA funds. Right.
Second,
well, didn't we vote on that?
did we?
We haven't voted yet, have we?
I don't think so. No.
No, the motion's on the floor. We haven't voted. And I think,
We didn't vote how we were gonna pay for it, Paul.
Right.
yeah, we didn't even vote on the original motion. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
Yeah, we did.
We
yeah.
haven't voted
Yeah,
yet
we
on
did.
how we're gonna pay, right? That
Yeah.
motion's still on the floor. We need,
I seconded it.
it's been moved and seconded. Paul, you want to hear it again? Are you all set?
No, no, so this is the second motion of where it's coming from, that's fine. I didn't make it, somebody must have made that.
I made the motion and John seconded it.
Yeah,
All right. All those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
yes,
you, myself, Rebecca, are you okay with the motion? You're clear with that? Okay, is there anything else? Sonny,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. And if you're Scott Kane, you're all set?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to handle it.
Okay. Is there anything further with this item, or can we move on? All right, we're gonna move on. Sheriff, thank you. All right, let's see. Leroy, good morning.
Good morning. Couple of things on the monthly report. I did send Silver another email a week or so ago, no response, just
Checks in the mail.
yeah. I go to the mailbox every day looking for that Silver Airways check, but nothing yet. Like a kid, looking for his first birthday card or something, All three of us have had both of our COVID-19 vaccines, so we're in good shape there. We've been working with Trenton Fire Department and the town of Trenton to have a joint venture for our lead ARF, and that met with very good response from both the town officials and the fire department. So we're working a little more on that. See what we can come up with. We got some AIP projects coming up this season. Beacon, they're going to replace the airport beacon. They're going to do some airfield remarking, which is a 2-year project. Every 2 years we have to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to stretch that out eventually. And a no foam testing system of our foam on the trucks. The good news is there's an airport COVID response grant program, and we've the offer is $1,003,427.
Is that just for your airport?
Yeah.
What the hell are you gonna do with $1.3 million?
It's we're going to spend it somehow. It's
Does it
For
all?
It's off operational. We've been checking into it, and the only drawback we see is we can't use it for infrastructure. So one of the things we was looking at is the SRE building, but the way the numbers go, $1.20 million isn't enough for an SRE building anyway, but
Does it have to be COVID related?
it says operations. So it can go to payroll, it can go to fuel, it can go to, one of the things they said is, if you want to upgrade your HVAC system in the building, that kind of stuff's air handling, cleaning.
Can it go towards staff?
Yeah, payroll, yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Payroll?
operational grant.
Yeah, yeah.
So can that be used to help offset the cost of the sheriff supplying law enforcement to the airport?
It's possible. It hadn't really gone there, but yes. Yeah, I mean, that would be, from what I could face value, I would say, yes, that's an operational cost.
So do you have to stipulate what you're going to use it for before you apply?
No, we only have to stipulate it when we go to get the funds. It's like any, it's basically the CARES Act grant that we had. But they put a little more restriction on the CARES grant you could use for, building a building or whatever, and this one you can't, so.
So it's just a matter of applying for that now?
Yeah, it's just a matter of, and one of the agenda items is authorize me to sign that form. The form was pre-populated with my name on it, that's all.
So, just to move things along here, everything that the airport manager has outlines in his memo, so I'm gonna move to accept and file the airport manager's report as presented.
Seconded? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Wambacher?
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself.
Okay, and then now I'm gonna move to approve the airport manager's signing of the airport coronavirus response grant program application SF 424 as requested.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Commissioner Wambacher?
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
And I am myself.
Okay, now I'm gonna move to move approval of contracting with Jacobs Engineering for design and assembling bid documents only for a new rotating beacon, and authorize the chair to sign when available, not to exceed 35,000.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
So,
Throw out there, this is all reimbursable
Okay.
through the AIP grant, once the grant offers are out there. This is just getting Jacobs in an agreement to start get the paperwork in order.
are we getting a new beacon because of it's required every so years, or like what's the story?
The beacon's old,
Real old.
stuff, and from the trees in the area have grown up above it, and we don't have easements to remove the trees in that area. So the new beacon actually will be over just outside of my office window on a pole.
All right.
So
And
that's-
when do we expect it to get done, the project?
They're gonna do that. That would probably be the first thing they do, because it doesn't require any airside issues. It's just a matter of putting it in the ground and running some wires. Matter of fact, Jason at Jacobs asked if somebody could come out and look at the electrical next week,
All right.
to start the bid process.
That's good for me.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Commissioner Wambacher?
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
And I am myself. Motion carries.
Okay, now I'm gonna move to approve contracting with Jacobs Engineering for design and assembling bid documents only for the airfield remarking project and authorize the chair to sign one available not to exceed 35,000. And that's what Leroy was speaking of earlier.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Every 2 years, right?
Yeah, it's every 2 years. We're hoping eventually we can get into a 2-year inspection of the airport instead of a 1-year inspection. When we moved the airport classification from class 1 to class 4, that gives the FAA the option to inspect once every 2 years. Now we're in the 2-year cycle right now because they didn't do anything in 2020 because of the virus. So nobody's been here for over a year for actual inspection.
And as I understand, both these projects are fully reimbursable through the airport.
Yeah, it'll be a 95 and 5.
Right.
So we'll be obligated for 5% of it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
and myself. We have another item that was added to the thing, and it's a transfer request, end of the year transfer request.
Right, so commissioners, what this is, again, these are the 70 series accounts in the budget. So in this case, for the airport. And in discussing with Richard and Leroy have worked quite well at updating their capital improvement plan. And so consequently, some of the transfers are exceeding what was in the budget, but essentially you're transferring undesignated monies anyways. And so what you see before you is what Leroy and I have worked out, and I put it in Excel form. So if you have any questions, try to answer them.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Scott, when we move this, do we have to specify each account that it's going from and to, or is it can a motion be done to move the total?
Unless there are specific questions or any issues with any of them, I would simply request this and entertain a motion to make all the transfers as requested. You can reference the document.
And if your motion would simply reference the $24,350
Yep.
$81, I think that would be suffice.
Yep.
John, are you moving that or?
Yeah, I move that we transfer $24,350.81 into our general fund, airport general fund. That's fund number.
Well,
What number?
yeah,
what is
back up just a little bit. After the
Yeah.
amount, I would just simply indicate per the request.
As requested.
Okay,
As
as
requested.
requested.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and I am myself, motion carries.
Thank you.
Leroy, anything else from the airport this morning?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Kane. Did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just waving to somebody at my door. I apologize. Paperboy's there.
Good morning, Chuck. We're now moving on to the IT.
Good morning.
You have a request for us to once again sign an agreement with Sierra Communications, correct?
That is correct. End of last year, we had the budget meetings and we discussed the Sierra Communications contract, and we agreed that we needed to continue on with it. Although I did want to point out that our contractual services has gone down a little bit due to me taking over some of those responsibilities they covered. Talking with Scott and I decided that we should come up with a summary page and kind of outline where we are with Sierra, where we're going, and what has been done to eliminate some of the dependency on them. I think you got that little memo, and just going to see if you have any questions regarding it.
Now, do you anticipate your dependency to reduce over a period of time, or?
I picture it reducing quite a bit, but not completely. Right now, you were talking about computer security a little bit earlier, and one of the biggest dependencies we have on them is uh, they protect us from ransomware and other attacks through our email system. They have a Barracuda device which actually filters out and provides a firewall for our email. And Scott can attest to what it's like to have ransomware on our system. So that's a biggie. And one of our projects that we got budgeted over a year ago, and we're still haven't got to it yet, is migrating all of our email to Office 365, which is on the cloud. As soon as we do that, that will reduce our dependency on them quite a bit as far as the email goes. And like I said, it's a big factor about our computer security. But the other things that has not been factored yet is they provide us antivirus and backups for all of our servers and PCs on the Hancock side of our network. And I have not done a cost evaluation yet whether or not Sierra might actually be cheaper than going out and buying a third-party software and doing it myself. Since they do a package deal and they combine everything together, their rate might actually be better, and that yet has to be determined. We haven't figured that out yet.
I have a question on that. In page 2 of the document, under virus definition, monitoring, and management, and then if you go to your summary page, the second steps to be completed in 2021. Number 1 there is, are those, why is that included in the con? I don't know, it seems like those are duplicative.
You're talking about the AVG licenses?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we have is on the sheriff side, we have antivirus software and they pay for it, and all their computers is covered by that antivirus software. What I've done this past year is it was on a separate server and it only worked for the sheriff's department. And what I've done is I migrated that to the cloud. So now I can expand that and cover all of Hancock County computers with that AVG software. Before we weren't able to do that. So if I do that, you have to pay a license for each individual computer that's covered underneath that. So I can expand that. I'm going to look at the cost of doing that and then compare it to what Sierra provides and see which one is more expensive and which way is a better way to go.
Okay, so because the reason I'm asking this question, so you've answered my question that they are duplicative. And you just need to decide which direction you're gonna go.
That is correct. I got to do a cost evaluation and find out which way is better.
Okay, so since that is included in this agreement, are you still wanting us to move with this agreement and then it'll be removed, or how's that gonna be handled?
I'm not ready to do that at this point. I've got so much on my plate that this is something I want to get done throughout the year and try to get the antivirus. I'll do the comparison, and if it is cost effective to move to the AVG, I'll do that throughout the year, a few computers at a time. And by the time we come up with a contract next year, I plan to have that gone.
Okay, so you've answered my question. Thank you. So I'm going to move to sign the Sierra Communications Service Agreement for Managed IT Services dated January 1, 2021 as presented.
Seconded.
Who signs that? There's only room for a signature. I guess you need to authorize the chairman to sign that, Paul.
Yeah.
You can have a motion.
Okay, so I said move to sign, but how about I say move to authorize the chairman to sign?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, Rebecca, with that? Okay, you understand the motion, gentlemen? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
yes.
and myself, motion carries. Chuck, anything else?
No, not at this point. Thank you.
We added the executive session this morning to discuss computer security. That's going to be an executive session because of the security issues involved in that. Would you be around?
Yes, I'll stick around.
You don't need to stick around. If we can find you later, I'm not sure how much longer we're gonna be, but I don't need to tie up your
I'll just
time.
put you on mute and keep working, and then when you're ready, I'll see it.
Great, appreciate that, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to the jail. Tim Richardson, good morning.
Good morning. Just a couple things. Sign agreement. These are new contracts that we're signing. Just we've had them in the past. Just they're up for renewal. Sign agreement with Lisa Parkin for the jail's nursing service. This is no cost to the county. It is a comes out of the MAT grant.
Okay, I have a question on the first one on page 3. That's the one with Lisa Parkin. It says the provider will be paid $35 per hour, but then when you spell out, it says $32. So is it 35 or 32?
It is 35. Yes, we have two. That was my mistake because we have two. We have one to come in on a Saturday. With that, will be coming on at a later date. She is $35 an hour. I apologize for that.
No, that's all right. Okay, so I'm gonna move to sign the agreement with Lisa Parkin for the jail's nursing services as presented, with the exception of fixing the textural per hour amount from $32 to $35 in item 15 on page 3 of the document.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Oh,
Seconded.
thank you.
Motion made and seconded to approve the contract with the, did you authorize the chair to sign that, Paul?
Yes, yes, my motion should read, move to authorize the chair.
Okay, and that's just seconded,
Yes.
John. Gentlemen, Tim, when I sign this, I'm going to do a hand correction to the 32 and convert that to 35. I know that Lisa's already signed, but I'm going to fix that, okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Just initial it, Commissioner, if you would.
Yeah, that's-
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll correct it, initial it, and sign it. Anything further, gentlemen? Hearing nothing. All those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
yes,
and myself.
Secondly is we're going to renew our, if agreed to, a signed agreement with Chelsea Howard, the jail's medical service provider.
I'm gonna move to sign the agreement with Chelsea Howard for the jail medical services as presented. And again, I screwed up. I'm gonna move to authorize the chair to sign.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
I am myself. Motion
And no-
carried.
The last thing I have is promote Dallas Lawford to temp full-time corrections officer effective March 13th, 2021 with benefits of sick, accrual, and comp time.
move to promote Dallas Lawford to temp full-time corrections officer effective March 13th, 2021 with benefits of sick and comp time accrual as requested.
Seconded.
Now, Tim, why is he being promoted to temporary full-time?
Again, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the community correction specialist job. Before I do anything, I want to make sure we're, if we do make a change, I want to see if it's going to work. That's why we're just doing temp full-time to see where we're going to go with this position.
And then you'll come back to us later if we need to change the designation.
Yeah, you'll come back later. If you want to make him permanent, Tim, you'll come back later.
Correct. Yeah. If we come back in, yes, we'll be hiring him full-time and they'll be decided at that time. We'll have discussion.
Rebecca, policy-wise, if he stayed at temp for 2-3 months, does he get credit for that if he goes full-time later? Or does is that lost?
Yeah, no, yeah, he does. You mean in terms of his,
Seniority to his benefits?
yes. Mhm.
Okay, the sheriff is saying yes as well, okay?
And just so we all know, Dallas is a female officer.
Oh, my apologies to Ms. Lawson. Gentlemen, anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
I am myself, motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything further for the jail?
No, just Penobscot had a incident up there with staff with COVID, and we've been assisting with their intake. We're just kind of on standby this week to assist them, but everything went well, and hopefully everything back to normal here in a few more days.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sheriff, you all set? Sheriff is all set, then let's move on then to the RCC. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Don't have a whole lot this month. It's fairly quiet. Did want to talk a couple seconds on our Bull Hill site. I have made contact with all the companies involved up there. Try to accommodate the power situation off the tower. Everybody that I've talked to said that we're happy to help except for that. So we're kind of at a standstill with getting power run from somewhere other than Tower 11, but we'll start looking at fixing some of the other things that were in the assessment to make the site better than it has been, given the limitations that we have. So I actually had one individual kind of circle back around and make it kind of seem like it was our problem, though that 9-10 months that we didn't have power up there, that it was our issue. And I was like, no, that's not right. So we're gonna start doing a little better tracking of the issues on the tower up there, so that maybe in the future we have more issues, we can go back to them and say these are the examples of when your tower failed us. What else can we do? So, but at this point, ever since we moved the transformer up to the upper level, it's been running without any issues. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it continues. Most of our staff has had their second vaccine now. We've got one that is waiting for a second one. I was able to get, working with the fire association, I was able to get Joyce here immunized, as well as Chuck Carter. He's very imperative to us, so we kind of brought him under the umbrella of the RCC to get him his vaccine. We were also able to get Jim Cormier and Diane Honeywell immunized as well into the RCC. They provide us a very vital communication service throughout the entire county, so we were able to get them, leverage them in that as well. Rick's not up to getting the vaccine yet, but we'll try to get him one as well when he's better.
Oh, he had his first one the other day, Bob.
Did he? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Did he get it through another
Blue Hill.
board?
He got it through Blue Hill.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Really, other than that, there's one piece of legislature in down in Augusta right now to include dispatchers and corrections officers into the presumptive PTSD care and benefits through workers' comp. I think that's pretty good news, since they've been left out for a long time. So that's good news for us. That I know I can't speak for the corrections officers side, but I know our dispatchers take some pretty horrendous calls that haunt them, and these are to help them out when they have any issues. Other than that, pretty much it. Unless you have any questions, I did add one new thing in the report. It's basically how where the calls come from, our 911 calls. We have an ability to pull those off our system, so you see which towns have the most calls, or just kind of as a tracking thing. If a question ever comes up in the future of, why do we pay so much for taxes on 911, as well as because you have X number of calls a year or something like that. So just another metric to be able to look at, help track some of those things.
Thank you, Bob.
I move to accept and file the RCC director's report as presented.
Seconded.
All those in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity?
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Maintenance, good morning, Dennis.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen.
Okay, we have your monthly report in front of us.
Yes,
So let's go right to item 3. Do you have the figures in front of you on the bid, the original bids?
you're talking about,
The roof job.
yeah, yes, I do.
Okay, so who was the low bidder originally, and what was that amount?
It was 47,350, and that was Hanel Roofing.
Now, They increased that after they discovered something to what amount?
They increased it to, I don't have that right in front of me. I can get it though. They added roughly $7,000.
So that's roughly 54,000, correct?
Yeah, yes, it came roughly 55. Yes, exactly right.
55, okay. And you're asking now because of that issue to award it to GR, and how much was their bid?
Their bid was 57,500 or 850. I'm still getting that up here.
So,
I have 57,570, but yeah,
Yes.
57,570.
correct.
Now, tell us briefly, what was the issue that Hanel found after they submitted their bid that increased it? What was the issue there?
Yeah, so what they had done was operated under the idea that we had a tin roof, a tin deck under this roof, which we told every bidder that it was a concrete deck. In fact, brought them into the sheriff's office and showed them the underside of it. And he made a mistake, and he put in his bid based on using lesser materials. And once he made the discovery, after getting the award, tried to change his bid. I went to Scott with it, and we thought that it didn't quite, it seemed a little untoward for him to revise his price, having now seen the bids of all of the other bidders. So I felt that was disqualifying.
okay, and the JR Roofing, the one you're suggesting or requesting us to approve, they are doing the roof to the standards that Hanel Brothers wanted to go to, right? So we're comparing apples and apples.
Yes, that's right.
You're sure that JR Roofing understands that's concrete, not metal, correct, Dennis?
Yes, but they're the ones that did the roof back in '86, or the owner was active in it, and he has a firsthand knowledge of that roof and its composition.
Okay, so I'm gonna make two motions here. The first is to accept and file maintenance director's report as presented. That was the first item.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded to file a report. All in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself.
Okay, the second is to move to approve the re-award of the sheriff's office roof job to JR Roofing due to disqualifying events as presented and requested.
I would like the motion to include the cost of that, Paul. If you could include that $57,570.
570. Yes,
What is it, 57,570, right?
Correct.
that's right.
Yes, that amount is in my motion.
Rebecca, she'll plug that in there somewhere.
I'll email her the motion.
Yep.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Dennis, I'm glad this is only $2,600 difference, but I do applaud that your decision in not allowing them to amend that. It's unfortunate it happened for Hanel, but get it right the first time or you're gonna lose it. So.
Yeah, it was acknowledged by all parties, and which actually kind of restored my faith in him a bit. To come forward and be honest about it was good to see.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
I and myself, motion carries. You want to discuss the
Sheriff's Office entry rehab. Now, this is something that we were going to cover in the RCC build out a couple of years ago, as you recall, but due to redesign, it was omitted or fell through the cracks, if you will. And it still remains probably one of the most serious defects we have on the campus, with the staircase in particular. Now, my idea about this is that to replace the staircase is one facet of it, but we've got the gravel area beyond the platform up there, and the entrance of the sheriff's office itself, which is also a knee wall of concrete, which is in pretty serious disrepair as well. So my recommendation is to contact an architect or someone with design services to look at that and make a recommendation for the whole project, if you will. I talked with Scott about it. We agreed that Sealander both has the drawings and made drawings for the previous renovation, so he might have an inside track on it. And we've also discussed Lewis and Mom, or we could make an RFQ if necessary. And Scott might have something to add as well.
What is your concern with the gravel portion beyond the upper deck, Dennis?
It has formerly had plant life in it, and it was a tree or shrub or some such that was taken out of there and is just kind of sunken in, and it's wasted space. With, if you go beyond it, there's no railing there either. So if you want access up to the roof, which we've seen a lot of recently, or access over to the backside where the 911 server is, you're entering into an area that's 12, 14 feet off the ground. There's no railing there. And I don't see any better time to address that than while we're chipping up that deck.
So it sounds to me like what we need, well, I think there's a couple things here. And one of them is, and I've spoken to Dennis about this, in one of the ideas that we had with the RCC renovation, where we were going to cover that stairway and upper deck with a roofing, some kind of roofing. And I'm just wondering if we want to consider doing that when we renovate and repair the existing steps. Factor in, at least get a bid for what that would cost to cover those. Dennis has said in the past that if we could cover this and keep some of the elements off in it, we could extend the life of that deck by reducing the amount of salt and destructive chemicals that we put on the steps that eat away over a period of time. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't direct Dennis to make that a bid alternate, and that we start doing, well, I guess first we need an architect, but at some point we'll do a bid alternate for a covering on that and see what we have. When I look at his capital improvement plan, he had a 100,000 set aside for the roof replacement. We've already saved 42,000 there with the present bid that we just approved today. And that would help perhaps for the entrance project, give us a little more cash there without exceeding his 5-year plan. What is your pleasure, gentlemen?
Do we need to, so will we need to put out essentially a bid on the architectural side of it?
I don't see how we could, even though Mike has access to drawings originally there, I still don't see how we could sole source that. I'm not sure. I really think we need to do an RFQ and get that out to local architects and give them an opportunity to bid on that project. It certainly is going to exceed 5,000, correct, Dennis?
With no doubt.
Yeah. So we're exceeding the statutory threshold for bidding. And unless you can make a case for a sole source, we really need to go up to bid.
Right, then I move that
So
we.
you're asking for action to develop an RFQ, or
I would say that's his next step is
Yeah.
it RFQ
Yes.
for architect services for the steps.
So that needs our action. He doesn't, he
Yes.
can't develop it and present it to us.
Correct.
So the motion would read something like, request the facilities director to develop an RFQ for our evaluation at a future meeting or something?
An RFQ for an architectural services for the stairs project. Entrance stairs.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. Rebecca, do you have that? Okay. Okay, Dennis, does that suffice? What we're asking you to do is put your RFQ together, bring that back to us. Once it's approved, then we'll issue that and see what we get for interest from architects, okay?
Yes, just as a basic outline, will include the various aspects of the job that we'd like to include. For instance, the canopy, the entrance landing itself, that back section, the damaged concrete walls and ill-fitting doors, etc., just to give each firm an idea of a loose idea of the scope.
And I think make that more inclusive than perhaps we would approve, but make sure that they understand it, you know, to the extent of what they could be asked to do. Correct.
Yeah. So, and we
Gentlemen,
shared, Scott and I shared some ideas. We'll get together with them and put together the report and then submit it for your approval.
Anything further, gentlemen?
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I have this correct. So what I moved was to request a facilities director to develop an RFQ for architectural services for the repair of the sheriff's office entry rehab project.
Correct.
Correct?
That's what you seconded, John. You're okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. That being the motion on the floor, all those in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Mr. Parity.
Yes.
I am myself, motion carries. So we'll wait for your return, Dennis, with that RFQ, okay?
Yes, thanks very much.
Anything else from maintenance this morning? You all set, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, very good. Let's move on then.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes,
Can I just make a comment? Because I just want to make sure that Dennis and his staff get credit with the recent, once again, with the recent COVID exposure on this floor here. That the response time and the appropriate reaction time to using the Clorox system, man, that thing is paid for itself over and over again. So I just want to make sure that let Dennis
Thank you,
know that
Scott.
we appreciate it. Yep.
yep, thank you,
Thank you,
Dennis.
Dennis.
While we're talking about that, Scott Kane and Tim Richardson, I see almost monthly we're hiring Penobscot Cleaning to come in and do some pretty intense cleaning up there. And you people bought one of these Clorox systems, didn't you?
Yes, we did. This this cleaning is, we had an inmate here for a long period of time that was had some issues that we had to clean that was beyond our staff's means. A lot of feces and such that we brought him in to take care of. That's what these was just one individual was dealing with for a long period of time, which is no longer with us. So you should see that go away. But we do have a Clorox cleaner that the staff's using regularly. It's brought a lot of confidence and insurance that we're doing everything we can for our staff.
So this is all related to one inmate that's gone, so we shouldn't see so many of those.
That is correct. Well, hopefully that's the situation.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, let's move on to treasurer's report.
Move to sign the treasurer's warrant as presented.
Motion made,
I'll second that.
seconded to sign the warrant memo for February warrants. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity.
Yes.
Me and myself, motion carries. We don't have any other financial reports though, do we? Did we? No, we don't
No.
have any. We don't have
No,
any.
you did not. Trio is, we're still getting a few bugs out of Trio. So I did not get around to printing too much off. But I sent the finance report that that seems to have been requested. And I guess we can discuss whether you want, how you want to enhance that, edit that or whatnot.
Gentlemen, do you have that finance report from
As I indicated in the report, if what I'd like to do is quarterly is present something to you that would review current financials. So what you have right now is mostly for last year.
Okay, gentlemen, do you have in front of you the memo from the desk of Scott reference the financial report from 2020?
Yeah.
Okay, direct your attention to that. A couple of questions, Scott. The annual surplus was 103,000. The beginning fund balance was 38,000. Is that a positive or a negative number, the 38,483?
That is a negative number.
That's a negative number.
Yep, you and I have discussed this prior.
Right.
But that is the new 2021. So in 20 ending negative number without the annual surplus figured in, the negative number is reduced, improved by the 103,000. So prior to that, it was like 141 negative.
So you have applied all the surplus to the fund balance, is that correct?
It flows naturally there. Yep,
Unless we decide to do something
correct.
with some of that money?
Right. So like the 5,400 that we'll discuss in a minute with the transfers from the budget, from the county budget, that would increase that negative number to what, 42, 43, 44.
Okay, gentlemen, that's a discussion that I think that we might want to consider every year, is what we're going to do with any of the surplus money from the previous year budget. Now, Scott has applied this all to a fund balance, which has been in the hole now for how many years, Scott?
Well, once I fixed the books, pretty much, a year after I was here, yeah.
Yep. But we do have the ability to use some of this surplus money for other reasons. And I don't know if that's a discussion we want to have today, but, and I don't know what we'd want to do with that, but we do have that option. So.
Well, my feeling is, I've not been part of the budget process yet, but I would imagine that should be undertaken then. I also think that we probably need and maybe one's in place and I don't know it, but we probably should have a policy regarding fund balances. And our administrator has a lot of experience doing this. I think we need to develop we need a positive fund balance. A negative fund balance is not a good thing.
Well, it isn't, and you're right, no matter how much you have in equity and distributed to other, so again, the conversation has been, well, how can we get away with that? The auditors have been concerned. If you take everything in a whole, our equity with designated fund balances is like $5 to $6 million. So that sort of kind of takes care of that. You're right, before we decide what to do with any fund balance during budget season, which is a great time to do that with regards to transfer or anything else, we do need that on the positive side. And I think that's where we're headed now. Yeah. One other thing, Commissioner, is, and John, I don't believe you did work on it. What I will do is I'll send it to all three of you. Commissioner Clark remembers that at one point we actually got to a point of being constructive. So we went through each individual designated account and gave it a description, whose authority or purview it was under. And in the end, it essentially says, the commissioners can move with monies, as long as they agree. I'll send that to you so that you have that to review.
Yeah, and the reason I'm suggesting the policy, and again, maybe there's one in place, and I don't know, that is so that, for consistency. And Scott, I would look to you for advice on exactly what that should say, but I'm in Bar Harbor, we have a fund balance policy, and it says, this is what you should do, and
Yep.
auditors like that, and I think management likes that, and
Yep.
And I think the commissioners would appreciate that.
Yep. Well, there are accounting standards that sort of dictate that we
Yeah.
can, certainly, yep, yep. But, once I use the term fix, I would rather, I guess, once I corrected the books, it led to a significant negative fund balance because things just weren't kept in tune. So
Yeah.
we haven't had, that issue of dealing with a positive fund balance for a while. So, yep.
Okay.
Uh,
Gentlemen, any other comments with regard to his financial report?
No, but I appreciated this and I think we should take action on it to accept and file the financial report dated March 5th as presented.
Seconded.
Commissioner, is that what you kind of were looking for, Paul?
Yeah, I love that. Nice and
Yeah.
simple.
I tried.
Less than 2 pages, perfect.
Good.
Any further comment with regards to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yeah.
I am myself, motion carries. We have an end of the year transfer. Scott,
Yep, very similar to the airport. This is out of all the 70 series, most of them, several of them were expended throughout the year, and a few of them for like vehicles and such, I do that at the first of the year.
excuse me, are we talking about the airport transfers? We talking about $5,400?
Yeah, this is the $5,400 one.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep, still, I'm just explaining, this is the same, pretty much the same process. This is what's the balances that are left in their 70 series on the budget that go into the appropriate designated fund balance accounts.
So Jen, you understand your 70s are in the budget, your G accounts are your ongoing.
Yep.
That's your savings account. And just putting the remaining amounts from his 70 accounts into the G accounts. Do I understand that?
Yep.
Yep.
Paul, you all set with that? You understand?
Yeah, I do. Do I fully, it makes sense. I don't fully understand, but there's a learning curve there. I'm getting closer every day.
Well, this irritates Scott when I do this, but 70 accounts a checkbook and G accounts is a savings account. What happens is we got some money left over in the checkbook and we're going to move it into our savings account. That's basically what we're doing. Every year we clean out our checkbook and start over again. So,
Okay,
With
so-
the first one, the DA, the technology budget, that actually budget amount was 5,000. And they spent, well, the difference between that. So what they have left is 3,365.60. And so if you're willing to transfer all of that into their technology escrow account, which has an $8,100 balance, they'll end up with 11,500.
so what they're doing is rather than just taking that balance away from them, they're allowing them to save that for future use. Okay.
And there
Okay,
was
so
a plan for that money, sorry.
Yep, we need a motion to approve the transfer of $55,488.63.
I move that we approve the transfer request as presented of $5,488.63.
second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further comment? This report, our report, I mean, this isn't a statement. This is our report. We can design this any way we want. Scott
Yep.
Adkins.
No, this is a spreadsheet that I developed that has worked, but
I'm just curious as to whether or not we'll ever get a signature from that treasurer or whether we ought to remove that line.
that was done out of respect and still is. So, because what would happen is that once you approved it, he would sign it, and a copy of that, he would actually do the journal entries, whereas in his absence, I'm going to end up doing it.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
and myself, motion carries.
Thank you.
So let's move on to our wellness program.
Hold on just one second, Bill. How
Yeah.
about- So are we going to discuss the, in Scott's financial report, we've got this question of the jail budget.
Oh,
If you look at the bottom there about this question of using CBA money to help offset his negative fund balance. Do we want to talk about that today?
Yes, I didn't, where, what exactly is that, John?
Well, it's on his financial report. It's on the first page. It's under the jail fund 4.
right.
I almost feel like this is part of a bigger picture.
It is.
And sort of goes back to my comments on the fund balance issue that I made earlier. Am I right there, Scott, or is this a separate issue?
You are, and honestly, that's kind of why I bring it up today. As far as the bigger picture, I think we've cleaned up as best we can with the jail, and just for simplicity purposes, you haven't. I don't know how much you know about the history of the jail, but it is really hinged on state funding. Once they decided to flat fund everything, and it has really been an issue over the years. So I would say at least 100,000, if not more, of what you see as right now the jail has $250,000 negative fund balance, and that was after the surplus this year. At least 100,000 of that is from a booked entry that a former finance person here did, and then when I came here, they ended up suing the state to try and get that money, and they lost. There was no basis for it, whatnot. So that's what's being held in there as well. It's an effort to get the jail back on track, both cash flow wise. It's for morale and from a responsibility standpoint. In my view, again, a negative fund balance is not a good thing to have. And finally, if I could, we didn't increase the jail cap this year to the public, to the taxpayer, because we knew that the budget was going to had enough issues as it was. So I'm simply bringing this up as an option today that you may consider whether you decide today or in the future.
But to take community benefit fund, I'm just thinking this out.
Yeah.
This is a one-time occurrence,
Yes.
and not knowing a whole lot about community benefits money is just enough to be dangerous. Is that in your estimation, is that a prudent move?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think considering that we did not attach it to the budget, I think that account is for something, as you indicated, it should not be, and Commissioner Clark indicated earlier, should not be on an annual basis. This is a correction. It's not going to fulfill the full correction, so again, you may address, but under a different scenario, you may address in the future if you so choose to possibly transfer more money at a later date, depending on. But to me, it benefits the entire Hancock County. So yeah, I think it would be a prudent move. But to say if you didn't do it, is that a bad move? No. I think this is one of those, either decision would be respected and would be fine.
Well, maybe we should talk about this during our commissioners section. We're talking a little bit about whether we're going to do a grant cycle or not, since we're talking about doling out more money from CBA. Maybe it all kind of goes under that same discussion. So we could always do it.
That's a good idea because we're talking about spending it. I would like to ask Scott, though, the difference between the fund balance in the county budget and the jail is that the negative fund balance is being covered by future revenues in the jail. In other words, it isn't just an account sitting there. If we're $250,000 and is that the case of where we're going into May or June's money to cover that? No.
Yeah, that essentially is just not that much of an issue. It's, I think we're down to like 30 days now with regards to cash flow, but that is an actual negative fund balance as it sits right now.
So that's an operational fund balance as opposed to just a bookkeeping fund balance, correct? In other words, this beginning fund balance on the county budget and whatnot is kind of a bookkeeping number that sits there and goes up and down depending on how much you want to put in there or whatever.
It could go up and down if you do the calculation, and it essentially does. So that number could be reduced or increased with the annual surplus or deficit from the jail. So if the jail was to make, say another $25,000 or $30,000 in 2021 for surplus, that number would reduce at the end of the year.
But in the budget, if you had $100,000 negative fund balance and you never touched it, never changed it, it just sits there. But if you have 100,000 in the jail, that's got to be covered somehow, correct? Is there any difference?
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the entire picture from an auditing perspective. So same thing, the jails, the airport has a positive, has an undesignated fund balance of over $350,000. It's almost $4. It also has another number, which is undesignated EIP, which is another 300. So overall, the jail has like $750,000. That is still under the county financial structure, even though it's a separate entity. So you take that and you subtract the 250 here, and you subtract the 35 or 40 from you've got a positive number of well over $500,000.
Okay, no, I'm still, okay, I guess.
Well, I guess the question is, do we need to take action on this today?
Nope.
I think if we do, I think John's suggestion is more accurate. We go to commissioners discussing community benefits money, which is item 11B.
Right.
And we can decide what we're going to do with any other CBA funds,
Right.
including this jail thing.
But before we leave the treasurer's report section here, Scott, when do you think we're going to have to get our ducks in a row on the TAN that you kind of mentioned at the end of the report?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start looking into it now, but that again, for a later discussion, that 11 million intrigues me as to how that's gonna operate. But honestly, yeah, I'm gonna have to start that process plan and at least taking a look at it, get my cash flow so that I have a more definitive timeline.
And in this year, there's a possibility that we not necessarily have to do the TAN, but do the loan from the UT again, since we believe that that's.
Yeah, I might, depending on how the numbers run out. So going off of last year was 2 million. I might be comfortable with asking, legal, well, is there any difference between the efforts or the charges for 1.5 million to 2? And so if there aren't, then I might be safe to go with 2 million and apply for it again. And if we don't need it, we don't use it, we don't get charged for it. Yeah, and go from there. The UT, I like to kind of keep as a second option if we have to do it.
Well, we found out last year it was more expensive to borrow from UT than it was to develop a TAN, even with the cost of the attorneys developing it. So I don't know why that would change this year.
Well, the interest rates have dropped significantly, so we're not going to have that advantage this year. It's going to, it's going to cost us some money to do a TAN this year. The difference is we don't have. If it comes out that it looks like it's going to be even at $750,000, and I know it's going to be higher than that. I think it's going to be closer to 1.5. There's not enough in the UT to do complete UT borrowing, I think is what you're asking. So yeah, because of that, I have to kind of go with a TAN.
Yeah.
But I'll look at that.
All right, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
So let's move on to the wellness program and get back to the CBA grant funding issue in a few minutes. Rebecca, you're going to give us a little update and.
Yeah. So this is something that we've been discussing for several months, getting a wellness program up and going again. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with what we've done in the past, Commissioner Parity, but this, the last time we discussed this, as far as I remember, we had 2 outside vendors that we were really looking at. And you had sort of given me the directive to focus on one, one that I thought would be more, that would work better with the county. So I met with Connor from Acadia Benefits, and we both agreed that trying to get one that mirrored our other wellness plan, the one we had in 2018 and part of 2019, would really be the best way to go. So we met with Ultra Benefits, and I sent you the notes from that meeting that I had with them. Basically, the wellness program will consist of either 3 or 4 benchmarks. We focused on 3, but when I met with Scott afterwards, he reminded me that we had talked about using, some sort of fitness tracking plan or something like that as one of the benchmarks. So I talked to Lisa from Ultra Benefits. We can incorporate that if we want to. So I guess what we'll need from you, what I'll need from you is to, let me know if you want to go with Ultra Benefits for our wellness plan, if you like the way this looks, what you want to see as the benchmarks, and we need to, establish the incentive amount for employees and establish, which employees are eligible to participate.
Right now, you have it set that as an idea that there would be a $300 incentive.
Yeah, and that's pretty close to what we did before. So in the other one, it was $600 if the employee and spouse participated. It was $360 if only the employee did. We had something like 34% employee participation in the last plan, 10 participating spouses. I wouldn't recommend, I mean, you can do what you want, but I wouldn't recommend extending this to spouses at this point. It'll just complicate things right now and make it more expensive. It made sense before because, if spouses were on the plan, we had self-funded health insurance. So, it was a pretty easy benefit to administer.
Where would we pay this out of? How's it
That's
gonna
a
be paid?
question for Scott.
Before we get back to that, so I do really like the plan because I think there's like real benchmarks in it. And, that was kind of like my question on the whole thing is spending the money. Are we really gonna like get anything that's gonna help the employees out with looking at their health and, maybe becoming aware of, an issue that might actually help them out. So I am really happy with the overall design of it. To me, it's real. So I like that a lot about it. So far I'm pretty gung ho on it for the most part. What questions do you guys have?
Just do we need this? This is a, I wasn't around for a lot of the discussion of what was, happened before, but I mean, I look at the benefits, and they're very generous. Do we need this on top of that? That's, maybe the answer is yes. I don't know that, but that's one of my concerns.
Well, the difference now, Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference now is that when we had this wellness program before, self-insured, and any benefits that the employee had through better health was realized through savings. And that's not going to happen anymore because now we're paying premiums. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Yeah, so long term, of course, the healthier your employees are, the better your premiums are going to look. That's going to be nearly impossible to, to quantify. Short term, this is really more about employee culture, the culture that we have here and the relationship that management, that you guys have with our employees, and if you want to support, wellness initiatives and that sort of thing.
And so,
Yeah, support wellness initiatives and at what costs?
Mhm.
That's,
I was going to say, you're supporting it at the cost of 35, up to probably, well, Rebecca, what's your best guess on the amount of employees that would max out their benchmarks?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I hate to throw a number out there. I would be surprised if the first year 50% did that. I'd love to see, 75%. That's our goal, but it takes a little while to get something like this going. If the incentive is too, you can reduce the incentive. You can make the incentive whatever you choose. There's got to be a little bit of a balance though, because if we're gonna put the time and money into this program, if the incentive really isn't enough to motivate the employee, there's not a whole lot of sense to go through with it.
but, so I mean, maybe I have this wrong, but what we're trying to do is motivate them to be healthier with financially, right? That's the premise to this?
Well, this really focuses on their physical health. Most of it does. The benchmarks do.
Yes, but there's a financial incentive.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the incentive is it's just a straight up check. Yeah, it's monetary. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're paying them to, I mean, I get it, I just,
Well, as I understand it, Paul, Lisa she actually does an evaluation of their benchmarks. So it's not just a case of fudging your annual visit or something like that. In other words, there's going to be a confirmation process. These people are really going to have to complete the intent of each benchmark. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, if somebody's in it just for the money, they're going to find that there really is going to have to be an investment by them, to get it. So, and a couple things that I see is that first of all is obesity and smoking. If we can address those two things. This morning, if you recall and whatnot, Tim Richardson was concerned that some of his jail staff didn't have any sick time. Well, I don't know what the reason is for that. I have my suspicions, but if some of that is poor health, and if we could improve that, that would no longer be an issue. Perhaps we could reduce that issue. So I'm looking at this for the first year of involvement, it being somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 probably. And if that be the case, I think I would like to see us do this for a year to see what the involvement is and to see if we can get people into this program and see how.
well, I agree with all those premises. It's just, it's always easy to add benefits and very difficult to take them away, which, if we only did it for a year, that's what we'd be doing. But, I mean, is this something that's prevalent in municipal and county government? I mean, I've not seen it in municipal government, so, maybe it's not that I'm reluctant, I'm just, this has a cost. When we're, very generous in my opinion anyways, is this something else that we need to do? And again, maybe the answer is yes, but I
think because of the number, of employees and wanting to encourage, obviously good health that helps reduce expenses, have better, attendance, however we want to look at it, just that we have their back. I think it's a good program. I think it's a little bit of us coming at it from different perspectives. So
Yeah.
Paul and I have joked about, we have the hardware contingent covered on the commission now, with Paul being the family-run business and me being, the big box behemoth, right? So I can understand from Paul's perspective. He thinks about this and goes, "Oh boy, more benefits. I got five guys here or whatever it is, 10 people here, and I'm going to give more benefits. From my perspective, I'm used to something like this from a Big Pox perspective, because we have over 100 people working for us, and we have a little program that's like this, and essentially it takes a little bit off of their of our healthcare expenses every week if you're enrolled and you keep up with the benchmarks. If you fall short and don't do your benchmarks, your health insurance goes up a little bit every week, and you don't get that whatever $10 a week benefit or whatever it is that comes to you. So I think that's a little bit kind of, we have different perspectives on it because of our personal experiences with it. But if this causes somebody to get their annual physical, maybe they weren't going to do that before, they kind of ignored it a little bit, and lo and behold, we have one person discover that they have cancer, and we get that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not affecting our insurance costs because of it not being self-insured anymore, but we have maybe helped save one of our employees. So I think at least in the short term, we should see how it goes. And if we find that it's more of an expense than we're comfortable with, then we can either get rid of the program or we can lower the incentive. But like I said, so far I'm pretty happy with it.
Rebecca, how long did we have this wellness program before?
Yeah, we had it for all of 2018 and half of 2019.
And we lost it. Why? Why did we stop it?
Because that's when we moved to Allegiant Care. We went from being, self-funded to fully funded.
And why did that cause that to stop?
Because the program came with Meritain.
I see.
Meritain was the one that developed the program. They developed the reporting and all that.
Did they pay for it? They pay for it as well?
They did, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Except for the incentive, of course, we paid for that.
And how well was that attended to by the employees back then, 18 and 19?
Yeah, 18, that was our first year. We had 27 employees, roughly 34% of the employees that were enrolled in the plan, in the healthcare plan participated. So that's pretty good, a third for the first year. And, a handful of them had their spouses join too. It takes a couple of years to get, something like this going, something like this off the ground. I mean, I don't want to say, taking it year by year is a bad idea. I wouldn't be opposed to that. And I agree with you, Commissioner Parity. I think we are very generous when it comes to our benefits. We have great health insurance, and our PTO, our paid time off, is also very generous. So, when you ask the question, do we really need it? I don't know that we really need it, but it does. There are a lot of benefits that come with this. The trouble with this is it's really hard to quantify. There aren't really any metrics available that give us how this is directly impacting us in a positive way. It comes down to things like employee engagement and absenteeism and that sort of thing.
Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. What I'm weighing is, the annual cost versus the benefit, which we've just stated is hard to quantify, and the cost is going to revolve around our participation. So I guess I support this, but so what are our next steps to do this? What do we need action on this of some sort?
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I guess if we approve, I'm just, good question, because I didn't want to get the cat before the horse here, but I'd like to see the program that we're going to approve rather than approve a program and then try to alter it. So, for example, these three benchmarks, under this situation, you have to accomplish all three before you get to 300. Is that correct?
Yes.
So is there any benefit in giving them, 25% for the first benchmark, 25% for the second, and then your full 100% if you complete the third? In other words, to keep them moving. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. I
So in other
do.
words, is there is that a benefit to in there in helping them stay engaged?
Um, I, well, that's kind of tough to answer. I think it would be better to make it an all or nothing. I think from an administrative standpoint, that would be easier. And from, I guess, an employee engagement, standpoint, these aren't difficult benchmarks to reach, but it does require them to put in an effort to.
And we were talking about increasing the benchmark to one more, right?
We
For
were,
next-
and that's something I'd like you to, I guess, weigh in on. Let me know if that's something that you want to do.
And what's the fourth benchmark? What is the fourth one?
It would require some sort of physical activity. Something, I talked with Lisa about it. She gave me some ideas, some things they've done with other organizations. Weight Watchers classes, a gym membership, fitness classes like yoga or Pilates or something like that.
So would we have to pay for that activity?
Well, no, we would not pay for that activity. The employee would do that. We do have through Allegiant Care, we have a benefit where employees can be reimbursed a portion of their gym membership. Of course, the other thing with this is, so there's that, but then there are also employees who, I don't know, run 3 miles in the morning. So there would have to be some sort of, I don't know, self-monitoring.
Oh, and this just seems like a bear to administer.
That's that's why we decided to outsource it.
Yeah.
Well, how much of this is Lisa going to manage for you, Rebecca?
Well, I can't answer about that fourth piece yet because I haven't had enough conversation with her, about the fitness piece. But the rest of it is pretty straightforward. What will happen is I'll give her a census, the employees that are eligible. She'll build the portal. She'll send out the materials that explain the program. Then I'll get a report every 6 months of the employees who have reached the benchmarks. And we'll also get a report, an aggregate report that will just give you some ideas of, employee numbers and, blood pressure, obesity, those sorts of things. Though none of the names will be included in that, but that'll give you an idea of how healthy your population is. Over time, we can compare that, see if that's improving at all.
And you see this annual cost is what right now?
Well, so that's the cost for the portal, the program itself is $5,363.92.
Well, based upon the amount of people that attended the first time in 18 and whatnot, it looks to me like this could be around 15,000 for the first year. List participation is substantially higher and they complete the benchmarks. But with only 27%, and if 27%, not all of those, of course. Anyways, that could be at 30%, that could be around $15,000 for the first year.
Right, Commissioner Parity, I've seen this work. I've experienced it working quite well. Now, I will tell you the situation from where it started from really had no place to go but get better, but it worked. For instance, just real quick, the health insurance company found that the health insurance company contributed a small amount to it. It was developed, we participated, and within 6 months, they notified us that they increased their contribution to close to 20 grand, and we developed a gym from it. And the reason for that is that they found 2 medications within the first 3 or 4 months, there were 2 medications that were eliminated. rather costly medications. So I just want to point that out as addressing your questions with, the cost savings. It's very difficult to quantify this with true numbers. And the last point, if I could, is that with this information, it also allows you that when it comes to negotiating time with the health insurance rates, that you could possibly bring this up and say if the rate was a little bit higher than we anticipated, you might be able to use it to get a 0.5% or 1% off of that rate. It would be, be a good negotiating tool if you were showing that there was an effort on the county's part to increase the cost of health insurance.
Okay, so what's our next move? What do we need to do to, it sounds like there's support for this. We're
Personally, I'd like to see the fourth piece added with physical activity. Something very simple. It's an honor system with that one, kind of sort of with your health assessment. You can cheat a little bit if you want to, but the only one you hurt is yourself.
So
The balance are with the medical and the dental annual visits.
So are you looking for some sort of action on that, or do we all just agree to look at this once that's been added? What do we do next?
Yeah, I would say that's, Rebecca, that's probably
Yeah.
where we're at. If you're in consensus with what you currently have and agree with adding the fourth, let's take a look and see if we can design it and we'll come back.
I think we really need to consider that fourth option though, because the first three, basically it's done and over with. The fourth option seems to be an ongoing thing, and I don't know how you assess completion if it's ongoing.
I think that's why Scott's kind of saying to a degree, it's some of the, some stuff like that is on the honor system. So, I mean, sure, somebody could, but we'll have to see how they develop the fourth.
Right, but here's the
Fourth
thing:
criteria.
if you don't get your $300 bonus incentive pay until you've completed all 4 benchmarks, but the fourth one is an ongoing incentive, at what point do you qualify for your incentive?
Yeah, we would have to design that so that it could be, it could, I think maybe we're thinking now if you exercise 3 times a week, every week, then you'll get the incentive. We'll have to do something that's really contained within a 6-month period. So I can talk to Lisa about that.
Might ask her too if there's a component where they do this is like doing fitness tracking in terms of like having an Apple Watch or whatever, something along those lines where you're encouraging the employee to track their fitness in that way. So I'm not sure if that's an option, but that could be something that you could ask her about, whether they do anything along those lines to help validate the physical part that you're trying to monitor yourself.
Okay. So you're comfortable with ultra benefits, I guess, for the first part. I mean, you're comfortable with me moving forward with this vendor.
Well, you didn't explain why we didn't stay with Acadia. Acadia couldn't meet the criteria that we had with Meritain.
Oh, no. So Acadia Benefits is they're our benefits advisor. So they're with us through this whole thing.
I see.
Yeah.
Acadia is recommending ultra benefits. Is that correct?
Yes.
I
Yes.
got you.
Acadia works with me through.
One was competing with the other. Okay, I understand. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. There was another program we were considering, but that was very, that was a more local one. It was through Northern Light, but it wasn't as specific as this. It was more, we'll design a plan for a weight loss plan or a plan to lower your cholesterol with individual employees and provide support. It was nice, but it was much more expensive, and it was a little bit more complicated.
Okay, so today, by general consensus, we're in agreement to ultra benefits, and we're interested in seeing the specifics of what this is going to look like, and that's it for today. We don't need to really take action.
One more thing that I would just like to get your consensus on is which employees do you want to be eligible for this benefit?
And what's the categories?
Well, my recommendation would be only those employees who are enrolled in our health insurance. And that's because we know what the cost, there's no cost for a physical through our health insurance for the annual physical. We also offer dental. And that's one of the benchmarks. It's easier for employees who are enrolled in our plan.
And what percentage of this 100 employees have our,
Right now, we have 79 active employees enrolled.
Well,
And that's a pretty static number. I mean, it doesn't.
well, to answer Rebecca's question, I would be interested in what your suggestions are. You've sort of outlined them, but I think that needs to be part of this package, you know, that, you know, here's, you know, here's the proposal, here's the document, this is who I recommend or advise you to consider. I mean, I just don't have all the information to answer that question without hearing certainly a recommendation from you, which you've started, and Scott.
Rebecca, I'd like to hear more too on why we're excluding over 20% of our employees, the benefit, you know, the reasons for that.
Mhm.
I think it's unfortunate that, you know, I'd like to know why we can't have 100%. What's the disadvantage of having this other 21% excluded? Okay,
Mhm.
we can have more information on that. And
Okay.
okay, gentlemen, have we heard all we need to for today? And we'll look for this again on a future agenda item.
Yes.
Rebecca, you all set?
I am all set. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize for belaboring this. This is new to me.
No, it's good. That's why we have the discussion.
Let's move on then to the community grants, community benefits grant cycle. John, I understand that you asked to have this put on the agenda.
Yeah, I had somebody ask whether there was going to be any kind of grants this year, and I just told them that, you know, at this point we hadn't really discussed it. We didn't do any last year because we were going to be using the community benefits funds to cover the RCC expansion. So I said that I would ask about it, and it seems like something we should have a discussion about anyway, every year, and not, you know, ignore it.
You know, back on my original comment, at the beginning of the meeting, and whatnot, spending our CBA money for one-time reasons is my priority with that. And one of the best, I think one of the best one-time fund things is capital improvement projects. I mean, it'll be several years before we have to fix our steps again. And I think paying for those out of CBA fund is a good way to avoid assessing that to the taxpayer. It's a one-time thing. It's not going to require future CBA funds to maintain. And so I'd really like to focus our CBA funds on our capital improvement projects, and then using it for these, you know, these pop-up issues like today with the assessment credit for Swans Island and other things as they come up. And so I'm really not interested at this time. Personally, I'm not interested at this time in developing a grant cycle for this year. Paul, do you understand what we did in the past? We put up $100,000, set up a criteria for who could apply, went through a criteria on how to award that, and we basically gave out. Was it a one-time? Only once, Scott, that we've done this, and we gave out $100,000 to selected organizations who qualified and for these grants.
I understand it. Yeah, I do understand it. I'm not sure. I worry about, I don't think as a county we should be, you know, that we can effectively manage a grant program, but, you know, I don't know, I'm ambivalent because I need more experience with it. The grant,
I tell you, we muddled through it last time, I thought pretty well. I mean, we had one
Yeah,
commissioner.
it's not that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he
it
couldn't
is-
have couldn't comply with the criteria, but John and I did quite well with that.
okay, well, my comments are inexperienced comments, so, take them with a grain of salt, but I guess I'd like to see the criteria and understand it and, before I said, let's move forward.
I guess
But that's the exercise we're having, I think.
So, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying, Bill, but I also kind of feel like if we're just using it for capital improvements, I mean, I know the idea of it benefits the community because we're not increasing people's county taxes to pay for the RCC expansion. And obviously, if we expand the RCC, we have better service to all the citizens. So I think that, I think I didn't have any question or any problem with us using the funds in that way. But I also kind of feel a little bit like, I don't want to use the wrong term, but it seems to, I also don't want it to become a little bit of a fund that's being used just to,
A personal slush fund, yeah.
I was going to say slush fund. I didn't want to say it, but I mean,
I know what you
to
mean.
like do these like projects around the courthouse. When I kind of feel like the community benefit part is that, I know like, you're one of your real concerns is, our Department 17 problems, right? Where we get those people in there and we can't get them out. And I think if maybe there's at least some attempt to offer very limited one-time grants, sometimes some of those things might not, you might not have some people trying to apply into that group because maybe a group has a particular project where they want $15,000 to do something and the county goes and helps them out. But I mean, that's kind of my thought on it is I'm just a little bit.
Well, Scott Adkins, what is how much CBA funds do we have now? And those payments don't come in until late in the year, right?
Right. So as of right now, you have, I think it's 950,000. I think I put that in the report.
Yeah, I think that's the figure I saw.
Yep. And so it's just shy. I want to say it's like 388,000 per year is supposed to come in. And the reason I say supposed to is that as long as that comes in, you got roughly $400,000 coming in, and it still has at least 10 years. I think it's 12 years left on this.
So, given John's statements, Paul, it wouldn't be extravagant for us to have another $100,000 round of grant requests. But I would tell you, John, that we never did go back and refine the criteria for applying and then refine the criteria for awarding, which is going to take it might even take a special session to do that because it's a different process, Paul, and it needs to be cleaned up from our original. But
Well, and then the other thing is, I mean, so we kind of talked a little bit about, well, will we use $100,000 to offset where the jail is, right? It's a one-time contribution. So I mean, you're right. I mean, if we decide to do that, then I'm probably not really in favor of doing a grant this year because we kind of seem to have used a nice big chunk for that, if that's the way we end up going. And let's face it, this STEP project seems pretty big. Go ahead.
Let me double check, but I think that $100,000 is, I'm pretty positive that that's not included in the 950. I will double check, but that $100,000 is the transfer, which is separately designated.
And because we're talking vagaries here, but I just want to make sure that it's a governmental function. It's not, handing out money to whoever, and, there's some criteria that, I mean, we do a fiduciary responsibility with this money, and that's all. That's my only concern.
Well, John, Paul, maybe what we should do is go through that process of developing and refining the criteria for applying and the criteria for awarding. We'd have a better sense on who could get the money and what we use for a criteria for giving it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
I'm gonna send them.
I just need to study that criteria because any comment I'm making is uneducated at this point.
I'll send the last round. I was gonna send it to all the
Perfect.
we'll send the last round so that you can all review it. And I just verified, so essentially there's 1,050,000, 54,850.03 in total in community benefits. The 950 I gave you is undesignated, which means it has not been designated anywhere. The 100,000, when we're talking about the budget and the transfer, the 100,000 was set aside as a designated account for that purpose. So.
Okay, yeah, I just need an education, and I think we need to address it because I just don't have the tools to.
Okay, Scott, why don't you send out that previous criteria? I'll have to see if I can find my folder because it's that criteria that needs to be reviewed, modified, refined, and the selection process as well. So let's make that our next step, and then we can talk about whether or not we want to go ahead.
Yeah, nothing doesn't need improvement, but I will agree. Two of you handled that very professionally, very able, and I have no doubt whatsoever that our new commissioner will be able to fulfill that same.
But that's what I say about the union contract. We had a contract and whatnot, and we realized that some of the stuff we were doing need to be tweaked a little bit, and we changed our operation, but we didn't change the wording. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
John and I may have tweaked the way we handled this, but I don't think we ever memorialized that so that in the future we were consistent. So that's the modification I'm talking about, that we really get into document exactly how we conducted this. And I think the big thing is that we can defend to the public how we awarded this. I think
Yeah.
that's the big issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's look for that, Paul. Look for the criteria to come out, and then we'll have another discussion at a later meeting on some kind of a process to refine that. Okay. Yep. So to clarify something you just said, Scott, the 100,000 for the jail. No, the
We didn't have
100,000.
the jail conversation, the 100,000 that we're talking about with that is in 2020. Remember, we had a transfer in to reduce the assessment of $100,000. Although we have options to use that, what we've done in the past, and we did that year, is we took 100,000 of community benefits, because basically that's probably where it would come from, and we slid it out of undesignated and designated that amount.
But that wasn't towards the jail budget. That was towards the county budget.
It was towards the county budget. I'm just pointing out that that if you chose to do that, you could move that to the jail. But I wanted to answer John's question was that's not included in the 950, so it doesn't reduce 950 to 850. It doesn't affect it at all.
Are we going to need the 100,000 for the 2020 budget?
No. Well, no, because I told you got what 100. Yeah, not unless you really have an issue with the 38,000 or 40,000 negative, which I don't think you should use it for the county budget. I'll tell you that. I think next year you're going to see a positive number. I hope.
Okay. So the issue is still on the table on whether or not we want to add, or we want to designate 100,000 towards the jail budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think maybe we table that to another meeting. You guys think about that, and yeah.
Do you want to think about that, or do you want to take action on that now? Gentlemen?
So, Scott, how would you summarize just the benefit of doing it? I mean, of getting the bottom line down by 100,000. What are our benefits to doing it?
Well, one is that you increase the negative, improve the negative fund balance in an entity of the county.
Yeah.
It just looks better on paper. The negative fund balance, as we pointed out, it doesn't allow the jail. What I'm really hoping to do is get the jail to a point where it has, as Paul talked about with fund balance policies, the jail doesn't have an opportunity right now to put monies away because it's so deep in the hole. And so what happens is the county is now, we're continuing to use county monies to or some jail expenses that they can't afford. And we do a very good job at doing that. It simply improves the financial picture of the jail. It will improve their cash flow. It'll make Tim feel a lot better. Yeah, essentially, that's just helping them dig a hole that's probably too deep for them to get out of right now without some assistance.
But we are all moving in the right direction to get out of
Yeah.
the hole, regardless of the 100,000, right?
Yes, I mean, he's still on projection for the positive side of things. And that's two things hinge on that. One is an absolute is we did not increase the cap. So if we'd increased the cap, I'm thinking that number would have been somewhere in the 86 to $88,000. So again, that's where I go to kind of validate that $100,000 transfer. But the second one, which is not in our control, is state funding. So in his budget, there are state funds that need to come through, and if they don't come through, well, he's in a deeper hole. But things are looking good, and the new funding formula. If the state, if it passes and it goes through, the county jails will be in a better position for the future, at least for the immediate future.
So the question remains, do you want to take action on that today, or do you want to think about that?
I'm okay with taking action today. I understand. I think what I'm wrestling with is, again, what's the community, these are community benefit funds. Is there a community benefit? Scott's made an argument. I don't see another way out of it, to be honest. So that's why I'm, if somebody were to propose it, I probably would vote in favor of it.
What's your thoughts, Bill?
Well, I'm really caught between my philosophy, my personal philosophy in this situation, because we could be putting $100,000 towards the jail expenses every year out of CBA. I mean, I don't share Scott's optimism that they're going to be solvent someday. I just think that there's always going to be a deficit in that jail. And I don't want to see us going back to the CBA funds every year to balance the jail budget. But as Paul just said, that there doesn't appear to be any other way out of this. So I would reluctantly approve designating 100,000 from CBA to the jail, despite the fact that I fully expect this, we could be sitting right here 12 months from now, having the same discussion about the 21 budget. So,
and I think a lot of this stems from, the state taking the tack they did. Is that a fair assumption?
With regards to Commissioner Clark's comments, or?
No, the reason we're in this position is because
Oh,
of
yeah,
that funding.
yes.
So,
And it could get worse.
yeah, so
Honestly, it can't get much worse. It can't get much worse. So look at this from the other perspective. If it does get much worse, and we're talking $100,000 a year, you're going to have the responsibility and the obligation to put that on taxation, which means you're going to have to go back to the cap and exceed the cap, which means, if you take 2 or 3, 4 years to decide this, and we continue to battle with the state, which a lot of counties have chosen to do, you're going to be in a much deeper hole to come out of. So I would not anticipate, and Clark, you can, as you like to say, tell me I told you so. I would not anticipate, nor would I be inclined to come back and at each year and discuss this for 100. We have to have a different discussion about a new plan.
yeah, and what are the state's obligations? But obviously we're not going to get anywhere with that. We're not going to solve that today.
Right.
So I guess we got to make a decision here. Do we kick the can, or that sounded like a motion, Mr. Chair, and I would second it if that was a motion.
here I am conflicted over that whole thing. Making it look like the cause.
I have the same problem.
I move that we transfer $100,000 from the community benefits account to the jail budget.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes.
And I am myself, motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen. John, thanks for reminding to bring that up.
I did have another thing though. Did we approve the warrants?
Yep.
We did?
approved warrant memo, yes.
Yep.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I wasn't sure whether we had.
The only
Okay.
thing we had under, we didn't have any finance reports. That's the only thing we did under.
Okay, all right.
So let's briefly, and I don't know if there's anything to discuss, but Paul, did you share that email with John?
I did not. I sent it to you and Scott in anticipation of you doing that. Where I was in municipal government, that's sort of how we did things, I just didn't.
Yep, that's fine. John, just to update you real quick, Senator Collins' office has notified Paul through a associate of hers that $11 million out of this COVID relief bill is coming to Hancock County. Now, when you say Hancock County, Paul, I suspect that's available to all municipalities and the county in Hancock County, correct?
I haven't spoken with Carol. I don't honestly know the answer to that question, but I was under the assumption that it flowed to the county, that amount, but I'm reading into a text in that email, so I don't, and that's why I sent it to you. I don't know the answer to that.
And I think
Okay,
that's
so
a question.
this raises more questions. Scott?
Yeah, so I was I became familiar with this last week, that it was starting, and been keeping an eye on it while I was out. Sankey is also we've been in conversations about this. And looking at, I still think that those that have awarded it, and I'm not so sure if it's official yet or whatnot, but I don't think they're fully sure what the restrictions are on it or how it's going to happen. But if you then I read an article in the Bangor Daily today, Trotter's gone, that where the state of Maine, is a front page article that says they're perplexed and I saw you, Paul, you doing this earlier, and the same thing. It's like the state of Maine is projecting $650 million over the next 3 years in total for as a deficit, and they're getting like 1.6 billion. So anyways, the headline said revenue shortfall. The grant far exceeds revenue shortfall, and I went, well, yeah. When you're telling me 11 million, I mean that's almost 2 years worth of. So then the next question is, okay, so if it does come to us, does it come with strings attached? Do we, like with the airport, do we just offset operating expenses? And if you create a surplus at the end, are you allowed to bank that? I mean,
how about I can call Carol and ask her some of those questions, but I think it would be a lot better if Scott made that call, because I just know enough to be dangerous. I don't know if you know Carol, but a wonderful lady. She's just a wonderful lady to work with. I'm sure she would take your call and get back to you.
Well, I think that was the intent of having this today and whatnot, is just get this started.
Yeah.
But Paul, I'd direct your attention to that email though. If you look under the part where it says, here is some more information about restrictions on the funding. And it says the counties, then in quotes, it said, and localities have a few uses that are going to need to be fleshed out, which makes me think that this 11 million is going to be made available countywide. I don't think it's going to be coming all to us to disperse, but that's one of the issues, Scott. If you will get in touch with Carol and find out exactly what this is all, because this, are they voting on that this week, aren't they? The House Congress is voting this week, right?
I think tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Yeah.
I think so.
Pretty much a foregone conclusion now, isn't it?
Yeah.
last I knew it was, yeah. And I'll tell you, I was impressed, but very appreciative when I got your email, Paul, Commissioner, because to have those connections like that and be able to, talk to somebody on right, almost the horse's mouth is going to be really a really big advantage for us.
Yeah, they're a very responsive office, very good people.
Yep, I've dealt with their office before, Senator Collins, but I don't remember Carol. So
Carol represents this, our section of the state
okay,
in their office, but I'll get your contact information. I'm not gonna be back till late tomorrow, but I'll try to reach out to you Friday and I owe her a call anyways.
good. Yeah, you do for that type of news. Yeah.
All right, so let's leave it to that for Scott to follow up with as much information, and by the next meeting, perhaps we'll know more after we know that the 1.9 trillion has been settled.
Mm.
All right. I think at this time, I'd like to move that we go into an executive session to discuss the county's computer security. And it's be done in executive session for the purpose of shielding any proprietary information with regards to security matters.
Seconded.
So would you put that under 4056F, which
I
is
don't,
discussion of confidential? Paul, where would you?
I don't know why we do that.
I don't have that statute in front of me. That's why I didn't make that motion.
Yeah, personnel, suspension, no, acquisition of real property, labor negotiation, consult with legal counsel. I think that probably fits as best.
That's fine. If you, yeah, wherever you think. I don't have it in front of me. I'm not home, so
Yeah, I mean, if the questions are specific to, maybe we start this in open session and Chuck maybe calls timeout. I don't know. Is anybody uncomfortable going to executive?
Well, I am sort of uncomfortable because I don't have it in front of me. But I can't, I can't imagine that we're going to be discussing any.
Afterwards or, things. Chuck, sorry.
Chuck, what's your experience with this discussion? Are we going to be talking about matters so sensitive that they should be in executive session?
I don't believe so. I think it'll be pretty generic, and I don't think it'll be anything.
We were certainly not going to be
sensitive.
giving
That
out
would be
passwords and
Yeah.
confidential information. And
Everybody,
And do we need to have the discussion?
I don't know, did you get the email from Scott reference the risk pools?
The risk
We-
pool, you mean? Yes.
Did you get that, Paul?
The
No,
ri-
no, issued a report to us. There's been a report done.
Yeah, favorable report.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So to me, that was just information, that was useful and says we're doing things right. And, I didn't take it as any more than that. You don't need any action or need to give us any more information other than what was in there, right?
Well, we may want to make sure that they were talking about Hancock County, Maine instead of Hancock County, Missouri, because a couple of the counties and whatnot got unfavorable reports, and it turns out it was Lincoln County, Missouri, and not Lincoln County, Maine. So I'm being a little silly, but anyways, the report is what it is. I think it's accurate. And we did come out good. So I don't know. I only asked to have it put on there because Scott issued that. I just wondered if it warranted the discussion. Are we all set with the information we got?
No, to me, I'm all set, and great job, Scott, and everybody
Chuck.
involved. And Chuck.
Thanks,
and-
Chuck.
You all set with that, John?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Chuck, thank you for waiting around. Thank you for your time, but I guess we're all set with that report. We're not going to have much any discussion with that. So, gentlemen, that completes our business for today. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, March 23rd.
I'm gonna move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, Commissioner Wambacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Parity,
Yes,
and myself, and we are adjourned.
thank you.
you.